You know, there's an old saying that whoever holds the keys to the sea, well, they basically direct global trade. And when you're talking about the most important maritime corridor on the planet, the Suez Canal, the big question is, how are you using that key? Today, we're going to dig into how China is making a massive, and I mean massive, strategic bet on this exact waterway. All right, so let's just get right to the heart of it. Is this whole thing a silent economic invasion? Or is it a genius strategic partnership? I mean, that's the question on everyone's mind. On one side, you have people who see China's quiet, methodical investment as this sort of creeping takeover. But on the other side, a lot of folks see it as a brilliant move for both nations. The one thing nobody argues about, a huge transformation is happening right now, and it could totally reshape Egypt's entire economic future. So to really get what's going on, we've got to look at the numbers. We have to follow the money. Because in economics, the data doesn't just tell you the truth, it shows you exactly where things are headed. And let me tell you, China isn't just dipping its toes in the water here. Oh no, they are executing a very calculated, very long-term plan. Okay, first number up, 125. What is that? Well, that's how many Chinese projects are up and running right now in the Suez Canal Economic Zone. And we're talking about a massive industrial and logistics hub here. This isn't just a handful of factories scattered around. No, this is a critical mass of industry. It tells you everything you need to know about how China sees this place. It's prime real estate for their global manufacturing and trade ambitions. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. We're talking about $5.7 billion. But the crazy part isn't just the amount, it's the speed. That number jumped up from $3 billion in less than a single year. Think about that. That's not a slow, gradual investment. That's a flat-out sprint. It just shows you how urgent and strategic this whole thing is for Beijing. And this? Well, this really puts it all into perspective. 50%. China now accounts for half. A full 50% of all foreign investment in the entire economic zone. Let that sink in for a second. That makes them the single largest economic partner in this absolutely critical region, and it's not even close. This is a huge bet on Egypt's future, and it's a bet that Cairo has obviously decided to go all in on. Okay, so we've seen the what, the sheer scale of all this investment. Now let's dig into the why, because none of this is happening by accident. This is a meticulously planned partnership where everybody thinks they're getting a great deal. So for China, the logic is crystal clear, right? They get to secure a vital choke point that handles, 12% of all world trade. They can build new manufacturing hubs for their massive Belt and Road initiative, and it's a clever way to get around some of those trade war pressures. Now, what about for Egypt? Well, the gains are just as critical. We're talking about creating a ton of local jobs, getting their hands on advanced technology and knowledge, and really boosting their own industrial independence to become a major exporter. And here's what's so crucial to understand. Look at what China is investing in. These aren't shopping malls or fancy restaurants. No way. We're talking about core foundational industries. A billion-dollar tire factory? That's about boosting local manufacturing and exports. A phosphate fertilizer plant? That's directly about supporting Egypt's agriculture and food security. And advanced logistics hubs? That's about modernizing the entire nation's supply chains. See? These aren't just random investments. They line up perfectly with what Egypt itself says it needs. Of course, a partnership of this size, well, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? When you see this level of strategic alignment between a country like Egypt and a superpower like China, it's definitely going to send some ripples across the geopolitical chessboard. And you can bet that a few other major players are watching this very, very closely. And this right here, this is the number one concern you hear from the critics. The fear is that these factories, these civilian projects, because they're so integrated with ports and logistics networks, well, that one day they could be flipped and used for military purposes. And given how important the canal is, that's a pretty significant worry for some people. But there's a really important counterargument here, and it comes right from the Egyptian side. At the end of the day, every single one of these projects operates under Egyptian law. They're supervised by the Egyptian state. The thinking is, hey, even if all the Chinese investors packed up and left tomorrow, the actual stuff, the ports, the factories, the roads, all of that physical infrastructure stays right where it is, as a sovereign Egyptian asset. So why are folks in the US and Israel watching all of this so closely? Well, it's about more than just a fear of military bases. It's really about a potential shift in influence, a reordering of power in the Middle East. a powerful new Egypt-China trade access that challenges the status quo that's been in place for a long, long time. So maybe the real concern isn't just about China, but about a newly empowered Egypt playing the game at a much higher level.
And that brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole discussion. Maybe the story here isn't really about a threat from China. Maybe the real story is about the strategic test for Egypt. This is a massive opportunity for sure, but it's one that's going to require some really skillful management.
So what does that skillful management actually look like? Well, it's a constant process, right? First, you have to monitor everything, keep a really close watch on all the projects and agreements. Second, you have to plan to strategically guide these investments so they serve your own national goals. Third, you negotiate. You set clear, firm conditions in every single contract. And finally, and this might be the most important part, you make sure you benefit, that every project transfers real knowledge and helps build up local capacity for the long haul.
And really, when you boil it all down, that's the core takeaway. It's not so much about who is investing, but about how Egypt benefits. The name on the check is less important than the country's ability to leverage this huge opportunity for its own national gain. As long as Egypt stands its ground and protects its own interests, it can turn pretty much any partnership into a win.
So, as all the pieces keep moving on this global chessboard and a new economic map is being drawn right before our eyes, we're left with this one final critical question. This isn't a story about something happening to Egypt. It's about something happening with Egypt. The opportunity is clearly there. The real question now is about readiness. In the middle of this global power game, is Egypt ready to play and ready to win?